one and all present here today. A warm welcome to Sangeeta Sahney ma'am and all the esteemed faculty that have joined the session. I am Sharanya Tata, your moderator for today's amazing session. We also have Ritika Shukla who will be patiently answering all your queries through chat. It surely must have been a great haul in attempting CAT and coming out with flying colors. Now sit back, guys. It's time for you to relax and make a smart decision in choosing the right institute for your masters. We are representing the admissions committee of School of Management and Entrepreneurship, IIT Jodhpur, which wholeheartedly welcomes each one of you to the very first MBA Master Class. I'm sure all of you must be wondering what a masterclass is. I'll clear your doubts. A masterclass is a kind of learning webinar series that gives the aspirants a flavor of the technology MBA that the institute offers. It aims to bridge the gap between technology and management. We today have our very own professor who will share our experiences. Prof. Sangeeta Sahney is a faculty at the School of Management and Entrepreneurship at IIT Jodhpur. With nearly 2 decades of teaching experiences, Professor Sahney has served as the faculty member at the UP Technical University, IIT Roorkee, and IIT Kharagpur before joining us. With a specialization in marketing, Professor Sahney also teaches organizational behavior and human resource management. Today, ma'am will be talking about emerging trends in sales management. She also has authored a book, Consumer Behavior, published by Oxford University Press. It's an absolute honor to know your perspective about the trends happening in the sales department, and I'm sure it's going to be a great learning for all of us. The virtual dice is all yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yes.
Yeah. So welcome all. Good evening to everybody, and I thank you, team, for having given me this opportunity to address an audience, a young budding audience who are on their way to joining the B schools and preparing themselves for a great career ahead. I shall be today speaking about sales management, and while I'll start with what is sales management and how it evolved, I'll take it forward to how and what is happening currently in terms of omni-channels and in terms of the electronic word of mouth, which is affecting sales management in a big way. Okay, so that is what I'll be going through in the next maybe 25 minutes, 30 minutes. I'll take you through that, and then I'll open the house for questions, if any. Yes, thank you. So, sorry. So is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So as I just said, I'll talk about sales management, and then I'll come to the emerging trends in sales management. And the various concepts that I'm going to cover are sales management, the importance of sales management for organizations, personal selling, salesmanship, and the relationship among sales management, personal selling, and salesmanship. And then I'll move you through sales objectives, strategies, and tactics, and how omnichannel marketing is affecting all of these. And then I'll finish it up with electronic word of mouth. So this is going to be my flow of my presentation. So when we talk about sales management, originally sales management was very narrowly defined as a direction of sales force personnel. It only meant guiding and allocating targets to salespeople and then guiding them through. So it was more of a direction of sales force personnel. Later, the concept began to gain a broader scope. It became broader in scope and began to relate to all of marketing, whether it was strategic marketing in terms of value propositions and target marketing, or whether it was tactical marketing in terms of the various forces of the marketing mix, with the price, product, place, promotion. So subsequently, businesses, business organizations, even academic institutes, they started using, they changed the word, they changed the terminology from from sales to marketing, and they started using the term marketing management rather than sales management. Now, how that happened was something very interesting, which when you join the MBA program, you will see that there was an evolution in the orientation towards marketing, right from the industrial revolution era to the 1950s, wherein business organizations which were initially more seller oriented and product oriented, that shift happened when it became more buyer oriented and customer oriented. So that is how the terminology changed, and we moved from a seller being the king to the buyer being the more powerful. And that is when it was realized that until unless organizations understand the needs and wants of the customer and deliver the desired satisfaction, they will not be able to sustain in competitive world. Okay, so so that is wherein where we moved from sales management to marketing management, and the terminology broadened. And later, of course, it was realized that no, there is a difference between marketing and sales. Sales becomes a subset of marketing, and so the American Marketing Association defines it as planning, direction, and control of personal selling. Now, what is personal selling? I'll take you through that in the next few moments. But here we speak of planning, direction, and control of personal selling, including recruiting sales force, selecting them, equipping them with skills, with knowledge, assigning them their targets, routing them, supervising them. Routing means giving them their territories, planning their territories for them, and then supervising them and compensating them and motivating them, all of which applies to sales management. So that is how the American Marketing Association defines it. But we are not going to go into the definition part. Why I just brought this here was that from sales management, we moved to marketing management, and then sales became a part of marketing, and that is how we started defining sales management. Now, so as I was talking about the evolution, right? Evolution happened, of course, before the process started much before the Industrial Revolution, where the situation before the Industrial Revolution in the United Kingdom was that there was a dominant influence of small-scale manufacturers on the economy, and production and manufacturing was supreme. Okay, it was a very machine-led, emphasis, and selling was not an important function. It was more to do with just manufacture mass scale and distribute mass scale, and so marketing or sales was never given importance. It was only after Industrial Revolution that there was slight emphasis towards a larger scale manufacturing. And when that happened, this became from a small scale manufacturing of producing and distributing, it became large scale, as I said, a larger emphasis on mass scale production, mass scale distribution, and some kind of a focus on production, manufacturing, sales, finance happened. But even then, what we see was that the shift led from a small scale orientation to a larger scale orientation, but the fact remained the same, that it was the seller who was the king. They were going to manufacture goods and services and bring them to the market, and it was left to the it was left to the buyers to buy whatever is being available in the market or whatever is being sold in the market. Okay, but what happened subsequently was that the 1950s led to a shift wherein it was realized that this kind of a mass scale approach of mass production, mass distribution, where the seller is the king, will not work. And due to extensive production of goods, selling to neighboring markets was not sufficient. The companies had to expand, organizations had to expand their operations. And not only that, post World War II, a large number of countries in the world got liberated, large number of colonies got liberated, and that is the point in time when competition started. And that is when the existing players realized that unless they satisfy the customer by meeting his or her needs and wants more effectively, they'll not be able to sustain. And that is when marketing started assuming importance. And today, marketing, and it was 1950s when this happened, late 1950s to be precise, and that gave way to marketing concept, and that way gave way to the individual marketing as well, societal as well, and finally today we speak of holistic marketing. So if you look at it, the marketing function incorporates the sales function, and it incorporates a large number of other things, whether it is market research, or whether it is sales, whether it is logistics, marketing logistics, or whether it's advertising, or it's after sales, or it's a sales promotion, all of it. But if you see in the figure here, which you can see, the core is the customer. Customer has to be the most important person here. And it cannot be an inside perspective that make something in the factory and sell it out in the market. No. What has to be there has to be an outside in perspective, wherein you study the market, see what the customer wants, what needs, wants, and preferences are, and thereby produce goods and services so as to be able to deliver that satisfaction. And therein becomes comes in the role of marketing, and therein comes the role of sales. But sales, again, as I said, is a part of marketing. Okay, what is most important is the customer and his needs, and it's important that companies who this, and when they devise their marketing mix, when they decide on their product, price, place, and promotion, they're very, very customer centric in their approach. And sales is no exception. When companies go in for sales function, the first thing that they need to understand is, who is my client, who is my customer, what am I selling, and who is my client and who is my customer. Accordingly, they must customize their presentation, they must customize their sales talk, they must customize their entire dialogue to be able to get business out of a prospect. So it's important, as I said, that if you see sales becoming a part of marketing. Otherwise, earlier sales was everything, but then it was realized that marketing is the core, and you have manager production, manager market research, manager sales, manager marketing logistics, manager after sales, and customer service, all of them reporting to the head of the marketing department. Now, why is it that sales becomes so important? Often you will ponder and you will question, why is it that sales is more important? The very fundamental of sales is that it is the only department in an organization that is instrumental in generating revenues. All other departments are cost incurring and investments. It's the only department in an organization which generates revenue. And the financial results of a company depend hugely on the performance of the sales team. They depend on the performance of the sales department. The sales people are the ones who are responsible for obtaining sales volumes, earning revenues, and thereby earning net profits for the company. Okay, and I'll come I'll speak of two accounting formulae here, and then after a few slides, where you'll see that how they actually are hugely responsible for obtaining net profits for an organization. Also, the sales team acts as an interface between the company and the customer. They are the interface. They have a very important role to play, and they represent the organization, they represent the company, and they have a responsibility towards the organization to earn revenues, to generate sales. But they also have a responsibility for the customers and for the society, that whatever they sell should be something which is for the benefit of the society, which is something which is value for the customer. Okay, so they play a very role. They play a role. Salespeople play a role which is a very, very crucial role, and they act as a link between the company and the customers. So if you look at it further, they in fact very often salespeople face an inter-role conflict, because they not only find themselves responsible and accountable to the top management, but also to the society, also to the customers, and often what they face is a conflict. Okay, so top management will always want the sales team to get profits for them. Maximum possible profit should come, achieve the sales targets, to earn profits, earn large, huge market shares, and maintain continuous business growth. Yeah, and they also have a role to play when they contribute directly and indirectly towards market research through the kinds of sales reporting that they do. Earlier, sales reporting used to be on paper, in hard copy, like they used to fill up reports. Today, of course, all that is real time. A lot of softwares are available, and salespeople have to just enter details with respect to sales revenues generated in a week or fortnightly or maybe even every day, customers earned, okay, businesses lost, after sales taken care of. All those reporting is done, and that also acts as an input to the market research team. And in that way, they help the higher management with very informed estimates, so that the higher management can go in for their forecasts and for their for the study of the market and for the study of the company's sales potential and sales forecast. Okay, so targets are set by the top management, and targets with respect to the sales volume and revenues, the gross margin and net profit. And the sales team is responsible to achieve those targets. Of course, whether they achieve or not, as I just said, will depend hugely on the performance of the salespeople. But of course, there are external factors as well, uncontrollable factors as well. Like, for example, what happened 2 years ago or the past 2 years changed and brought about an entire shift. Whatever estimates have been made, whatever forecasts have been done, went for a toss. So there are certain kinds of non-controllables over which nobody has control. But yeah, hugely in normal cases, we would always say that the salespeople has a huge role to play in bringing about sales for the organization. And so the top management expects them to do that. And if you look at the other stakeholders, whether it's the customers or the society, they also expect, especially the trade channel partners, your wholesalers, your retailers, or your industrial users, as well as your B2C clients, business to end consumers, they always expect salespeople to be very proactive, to provide high quality goods and services, and at the right time in the right quantity. Delivery should happen. Yeah, if there is a problem with the product or with the service, I mean, there always has to be a mechanism for dealing with product failures or service recovery. So that is something which companies expect. Which customers expect the companies to provide, and it's not the company who's going to provide that. Ultimately, it is this the person who plays the middle role. The salesperson is supposed to help the customers because he actually is a interface between the company and the customers. In fact, it's the customers don't form a relationship with the company. They generally form a relationship with the sales team, because the sales team represents the company. So any and every problem that happens, the customers are going to actually depend on the sales team or the salesperson. And the society also expects that whatever products and services are given, they are they are good, they are not harmful for the environment. If they are harmful, they're less harmful for animal life or plant life, or for in terms of pollution and things like that. And the salespeople would be committed to provide a product at a promised price and at a particular promised time. So if you see, the salespersons have a huge responsibility. And even in today's day and age, when we all talk of hybrid channels, which I'll come to, or omni-channel, even then, even if we buy online, we actually expect the sales team and after sales service team to really help us with everything. So the salespeople have a huge role to play. I just told you that I'm going to talk about two basic formulas, and if you see here, the sales team actually contributes immensely to the financial results of an organization. Yeah. So if we see these two formulae here, you have your revenues or you have your sales, and minus the cost of sales, we also call it cost of sales, is your gross margin. The gross margin minus your selling expenses is your net profit. So the salespeople can actually contribute to net profit in two ways. They can either increase the sales, or they would reduce the expenses. They would not have any control over the cost of goods sold, because that's got to do with the manufacturing cost. But they definitely have a role to play. They can either generate higher sales, higher revenue, or they can incur lesser selling expenses. And in doing so, they would contribute immensely to the net profits of the organization. So sales or gross margin, expenses, determinants of net profit, and these are actually affected by the performance of the salespeople. That we say that the salespeople have a very, very important role to play, and that sales department is actually one of the most important departments in an organization. Yeah. Now coming forward, because I said I'm going to link sales to say personal selling and to salesmanship. Now, what if we talk of personal selling? So, a face-to-face interaction between a buyer, a prospective buyer, and a seller, and wherein the seller or the salesperson will inform the prospect about the product, about the service, about the benefit, the features, the attributes, the benefits, the price, and so forth, and persuade her to enter into a transaction. This entering into the transaction or this closing of a sale is actually selling. So you see, the transaction is the sale, the closing of the sale. That's the only selling part. Okay, but this interaction which people have, given the age of the hybrid channels or omni channels, where we will see we have the web grooming or we have the show grooming, which we will talk of. Even in this day and age, this face-to-face interaction is getting kind of substituted by audio-visual interaction. Yeah? So I interact with you or you interact with me, and because of this, due to advances in technology, and because of this, COVID and post-COVID scenario which we see, a lot of our interaction between buyers and sellers is also happening, which is through visual means. And so, in any way, when a seller is trying to inform the buyer and persuade or convince him into buying a good or a service, that entire effort is personal selling. So, personal selling actually means a cultivation of relationship. It's a buyer-seller interaction. A very immediate interactive relationship between a buyer and a seller develops. Today, of course, as I just said, the face-to-face is also becoming audiovisual and across countries, across continents, different time zones. And unlike other modes of communication, like advertising, personal selling is more of a dialogue. It's highly flexible. So the buyer and the seller interact. In an ad, it's more of a monologue. In the ad, also the company or the sellers are trying to inform you about the product, about the features, about the attributes, about the benefits. They may even convince you into buying it, but it's a monologue. And because it's a monologue, it's a standardized message which reaches everybody, right? But in the case of personal selling, it is more flexible. It is not standardized. It is I talk to the seller talks to me as a prospective buyer, and there's huge amount of customization and personalization, and it's a dialogue and leading to cultivation of relationships. How many times have you may have experienced that you go to a store and you ask for a particular salesperson because the last time you went there, you kind of got to know him, you got to know his selling style, you could develop a rapport with him, and you remember that that kind of a trust factor that emerged out of that rapport. You try to want to talk to back. If you have to buy something else, you still want to go back to him. And if he's not there, you ask for him, because you've actually forged a relationship with him, where you want to build. It's more of a goodwill. It's more of a friendship that happens over a period of a small sales talk, and the confidence that the buyer or the prospective buyer gets, and post-purchase the satisfaction that happens with the product or the service goes a long way in strengthening these relationships. So therein comes the importance of salesmanship. Yeah, so it's a very, very important art and skill that salesperson must be possessing to be able to develop that rapport, to be able to develop that goodwill about himself, about the company, to develop that trust, to forge that relationship. And that is why we say salesmanship is a skill and an art. And what just remains is the selling. That's the art of closing a deal. So very often people try to question, then what is the difference between selling and salesmanship? Well, selling is the transaction part. It's the art of closing a deal. But what is salesmanship? It's an aspect of personal selling. The art of successfully persuading a prospect, educating him about your product, about the features, about the advantages, about the benefits, and influencing him or her. And this doesn't mean it's only for prospective buyers. It could be for existing buyers as well. So the art of successful persuasion, educating and influencing customers, both prospective customers and actual customers, to buy and rebuy and patronize a company's or a store's product and services or brands, is actually salesmanship. Okay, so it's an art. It's a skill. It's an art. and it helps motivate prospective customers to decide in favor of a particular brand or a particular store, because salesmanship can be for, loyalty can come for a store, loyalty can also emerge for a brand. Okay, so salesmanship is something which we say is the art of successful persuasion, and not everybody is trained to do that. That is why when we speak of salesmanship, we say it's both a science as well as an art. There's some that you can have a lot of theories on salesmanship, but not everybody can do that, and it is something which comes in the some people have the skills of doing that. Those who do not have the skills should not get disheartened, because it comes gradually with experience. Okay, so that is what we talk of salesmanship. So if we relate salesmanship and personal selling, and we say that salesmanship administers the personal selling effort, and personal selling is enacted through salesmanship. So you can see salesmanship directs the personal selling effect, and personal selling gets exhibited through salesmanship. So personal selling is a broader concept than salesmanship, is actually an instrument for implementing your marketing strategy, informing and persuading actual customers, existing customers, to enter into a transaction. And salesmanship is just a part of personal selling. However, it is of most importance. Why? Because it's the art of successfully persuading. Until and unless you can do that, sales will never happen. Okay, so that is why salesmanship is very, very important. And if we draw a parallel between selling and marketing, selling, the priority is on the product, but in marketing, the priority is on meeting customer needs and wants. Yeah? So in selling, it's an inside-out perspective. The company makes and sells, but marketing would mean that you first understand the market, the needs and wants of the consumer, and then have an outside-in perspective. Okay, so in selling, you're just concerned about selling your products and getting profits, but in marketing, you're more concerned about continual business, continual relationships, and so you actually look for customer satisfaction. So therein you can actually differentiate between sales and marketing. Now we come to the next, which is objective strategies and tactics. And now why I'm bringing this here is because today when we talk of the emerging trends, a lot of our strategies, a lot of our tactics, which we will see, are undergoing a change. Yeah? So any and every company would want that they actually have a decent growth in their sales, right? They want larger market shares, they want bigger, higher revenues, and they want larger market shares. And these goals and objectives related to revenues, related to market share, actually get derived from the marketing objective. Yeah? So, and the marketing objectives come from the corporate objectives. So there's a relationship which we see between objective strategies and tactics. Strategies will tell you the ways of achieving the objectives, and tactics will be your day-to-day activities which should be implemented, which should be carried out to implement the strategies. So I will give an example here. You just see, yeah, that you set your objectives, you develop your strategies, and then you evolve your tactics or your action plans. And the sales strategy typically developed from the marketing strategies. And there could be different kinds of marketing strategies, enter export markets, reduce your selling expenses by optimally utilizing your salespeople, penetrate existing domestic markets. So let's take an example where we'll see that a company wants to increase the sales of its electric vehicles by 10% as one of its sales objectives. So what does it do? What can it do? So the marketing strategy would be it enters newer segments. Newer segments could be newer geographical, segments in terms of other states or other countries. Okay. Another strategy for marketing strategy could be penetrating existing segments. Wherever you're already selling, you penetrate deeper. So let's take the first one. So if your marketing strategy is to enter new segments, and this would mean newer states, newer countries, so you'll first have to identify the states or the countries and decide on the channel, whether it's going to be a direct sales or through channel partners, whether you're going to sell exclusive or whether you're going to sell through selective channels. So that's going to be a sales and distribution strategy. But the tactic or the day-to-day action plan comes in the form of that the marketing department and the sales team first have to gather information about such segments, about the viability of the segments, about the profitability of the segments, and see whether those segments are profitable enough to be ventured into. And then they have to decide on the different channels of distribution direct channels or indirect channels or online or offline, and then they have to train their salespeople accordingly. On the other hand, if the company decides to penetrate existing segments, which means that it's already selling in those segments, now it wants to go deeper. In that case, what it has to do is it has to emphasize upon the sales team, upon the sales force, and it has to make very efficient, very effective use of its sales force. How do you do that? How do you actually become effective or efficient? In terms of the sales role, so you'll either add more channel partners, okay, you'll have more, you'll expand your distribution channel if possible. You will, if earlier selling on offline, now you sell online, or you go for hybrid modes. Okay, you train your salespeople, you train your sales manager, and you actually link their performance with higher incentives and rewards, so that you can motivate them to sell more to already existing segments. Okay, so you see here, a sales goal, increasing sales by 10%, actually derives from the marketing strat. And then when you have a sales goal or an objective, you have a marketing strategy where you're going to enter the new segments. And the sales and distribution strategy comes from the marketing strategy, and your tactics and plans comes from the sales and distribution strategy. So if you see, the sales goals or objectives are actually coming from the corporate, that you have to increase your sales by 10%, or if to reduce your selling expenses by X 5% or 10% or whatever. So that will come from the corporate. But after that, marketing strategy, the sales and distribution strategy, and the final tactics and action plans emerge. So if we come further now to the emerging trends, you will see that it's a big global market that we see today. We are no longer confined to our territories. We cannot operate in silos in domestic, no. And we cannot even afford to have very standardized products. So what we have to actually go, standardized products, or say, a standardized marketing mix. So Professor Theodore Levitt from Harvard Business School, he says that he is a strong proponent of standardization, and he says the world is one. We don't have, we don't have those boundaries, so as to say. There are political boundaries, but otherwise, thanks to technology, thanks to the internet, we operate in boundaryless environments. And so, we should have global brands, and with a set of the same standardized set of our marketing mix, whether it is the product or the price or the place or promotion. But the same Harvard Business School, there is another set of researchers who believe that no, while we are one in terms, technology can unify us, internet can unify us, fact remains that socially and culturally we are very, very different across continents, across countries. And so it's very, very important that while we may afford to operate globally, while we be global brands, but what is very, very important is that we have a localized mix. And so the word that emerges is global plus local, which becomes glocal. So you often may have heard of this term called local, but the fact, but probably you don't know that actually the word originated in Japan, where they use the word dokachuka for this, okay? And then it got translated to globalization. So there's huge amount of technological advancement, real time. The biggest challenge which we face today as marketers are that customers are highly empowered. And why are they empowered? Because they are highly informed. Gone are the days when the marketer could say that, this is not available, or this is not available anymore in the market, or the shopkeeper would be able to tell the customer that, the company has stopped manufacturing this product or this part or this thing. So the moment somebody's, first and foremost, we don't even depend on what the retailer has to say. Very often what we start doing is use the mobile or use any of these devices with information on our fingertips. So we are highly, as customers, we are highly informed, we are highly aware, we are highly empowered. And because of this, customers are highly demanding today, highly demanding. And if companies have to, grow, if they have to survive, I would say, the most important thing is to be on the toes all the time. Because if the companies don't go in for strong R&D, then, an X company doesn't do that, competitor is going to do that, and he is going to be able to come into the market with something which the customer had not even thought of, and then this company gets the first mover advantage. So it's today even you cannot even afford to underestimate the smaller companies or the smaller business organizations, And the hare and the tortoise, where the hare would win the race, is something which is a question mark today. Yeah, if we are not awake, if we are not informed, the tortoise also can win the race. So if you see the world's most innovative companies, they are spending huge amount on whether it, on R&D, and they're always and always trying to come up with newer and newer products, whether it is Motorola, Samsung, Sony, Apple, Google, you name them, and they're HP, IBM, they know that if they have to survive, they have to innovate, because if they do not, they'll be lost in the race. And this has resulted in product life cycles getting shorter as well. So today, the big challenge that emerges is to be able to be there with the product before the customer asks you for the product. It is something like that, and it requires cross-functional team selling. It is not that person from operations or marketing or R&D can sell. No, it has to be a cross-functional selling approach. There is huge amount of diversity in Salesforce because we operate across the world today, and what companies today cannot, have to do is adopt something which is called multi-channel marketing, omni-channel, and they have to go hybrid mode, online and offline. And while I have listed all these issues here, I will be focusing more. The rest of my presentation will focus on the omni-channel and the e-word of mouth. And of course, the bigger issue that comes in is being very ethical and very responsible towards society and towards the environment. That is something which governments all over the world are actually, coming up with a lot of rules, with a lot of laws, with a lot of regulations to be able to do that. So sustainability issues are also very, very important. But as I said, out of the various, listed points here, I would talk about the omni-channel and the e-word of mouth. Now, omni-channel, if we speak of, is a multi-channel approach, because today, salespeople, it has to be realized that salespeople alone physically cannot do that. It has to be something which is to be done in the virtual space as well as in the physical space. And there has to be a seamless experience for the customers, whether they want to buy online or whether they want to buy offline, and whether they want to buy from their desktop or from their laptop or from a mobile device or from the telephone or from the television or in a brick and mortar store. It has to be a seamless shopping experiences. Yeah. So because of this realization that companies have to reach the customers with a seamless shopping experience, the omni-channel marketing is becoming relevant in a big way. Okay, so the different channels of community. You see, earlier also we could say that companies began selling. Past 5-10 years, we see that there are companies which sell online, offline. But why it is becoming highly relevant today is because these channels have to be completely integrated to each other. It cannot be this versus that. No, it has to be together, because companies today face two very, very important challenges, which are in the form of web rooming and showrooming. In web rooming, the consumers will search the product online, and they'll go to a physical store and buy it from there, transact it from there. So the sales happens at the physical store. So they search online and they transact offline. But the opposite of that, contrary to that, is showrooming, where they first visit a brick and mortar store. They see, they touch, they feel, they try out the product at the store, and then they go and order online, or they buy, or they transact online. So these are big channels, big challenges. Web rooming has become a challenge for the people who have the online presence. Showrooming is a big challenge for people with brick and mortar stores. And so it's realized, organizations realize that they all have to sustain themselves, they all have to survive together. So the hybrid or the omni-channel is the answer for in today's day and age. The other thing that comes in is e-word of mouth. Before I go into that, I'll quickly narrate to you how and what word of mouth is and how it became so very relevant. So we all know word of mouth is interpersonal communication, where you interact with family, friends, peers, colleagues, even strangers, and you discuss products, you discuss about goods, services, brands, prices, stores, etc. And the kind of influence that occurs between the two parties or the two people, whether family, friends, peers, colleagues, this influence is called a personal influence. Now, how did this develop? It's something very interesting. And the story is that in the 1940s, when President Roosevelt decided to stand to contest the elections for the third presidential term, he hired a consultancy, a firm, which was, in fact, it was a research group. It was not a consultancy firm. It was a research group by some professors from Harvard and MIT, and these professors were Lazar Fled, Berelson, Goddard. They were all big names in the field of psychology and communication. And Lazar Fled, he headed that research group, and they were all given the task to study people's opinions and find out the kind of pulse of the people. Is Roosevelt going to win the election, or is he not going to win the election? So the study was aimed on assessing whether Franklin Roosevelt would actually win the election and get the third term. That was the agenda. In fact, maybe all of you would know that this was he's the only one to have stood for the third time. After that, the American Constitution went for an amendment which said that nobody would be allowed to contest after 2 terms. So anyway, during this 1940s, when this presidential election campaign was on, Professor Lazar Fled and his team conducted a survey based on interviews on the election campaign. And they discovered that there were certain people, in the community who not only who very closely paid attention to the election issue, and they discussed the trends, and they were the ones who would listen to the radio or read the newspaper and then pass it on to other people. Many of the people would not even read the newspaper or would not even listen to the radio, but it is these few people who were very influential. They were aware, informed, they listened to the radio, they read the newspaper, and then they used to influence other people's thoughts and behaviors. Okay, and the team found out that most of the voters got information about their candidate from these people rather than from the radio and from the newspaper. Okay, so Lazar Fled found out that the informal interpersonal communication had a major role to play in influencing people's thoughts and people's actions and people's behaviors, and so these people were termed as opinion leaders by Lazar Fled, who actually wrote a book, compiled all this in the form of a book, and they said, in fact, they revealed, the findings revealed that 70% of the people had sought or received advice from these influential ones, and the mass media had not had a major influence on them. In fact, it is these informal source which had a greater influence on them. Okay, so this was published in a book, after that, and the book came to be known as People's Choice. Okay, and that is wherein he explained, and of course later more work was done by his PhD students, and that was written as compiled. One of the students' thesis was compiled as something called Personal Influence, which was published in the 1950s. So actually, the word of mouth, we are talking about word of mouth. Word of mouth originated in that way, and today it is not an electronic word of mouth. It has moved further to become. It is not word of mouth. It has moved forward to become electronic word of mouth. Yeah. So if we talk of word of mouth, it is of 2 types: organic and amplified. Organic word of mouth happens when people buy a product and they share their experiences. And amplified happens when marketers launch and stimulate word of mouth communication between consumer circles, which is something which you see in a big way today in chat rooms and discussion boards. Of course, organic word of mouth always has a greater impact. Now, we all know that word of mouth is digital today. There are forms of buzz and viral marketing, and including social media. And people share product news, advice, opinion, all through their social networks. They influence each other through their posts, through their through their comments, and there has been also a big rise in the growth of online communities, virtual communities, and these people are those who discuss areas of common interest on the internet as a platform. We also know buzz marketing. We also know viral marketing. And buzz is when the marketer tries to create he tries to basically try to create an excitement. It's created for things that are unexpected, extraordinary, surprising. Again, we say it could be codified and uncodified. So when information is spread by a firm through different channels and means, such as ads or publicity or through testimonials, it's called a codified bias. Like, whenever a movie is going to be released, you see all of these actors and producers on chat shows, on reality shows and all. So that's something which is called a codified. But when people come to know about a new product or a service and they pass on this information in their social groups and communities, like for example, you watch a movie and then you start talking about it. So that's called a uncodified bias. Similarly is viral marketing, which is a term which was coined by, in 1997, and it's meant the spread of a message to reach wider audiences. So just as a virus spread, similarly, viral marketing helps in the exponential growth of a message to reach a large number of people and lead to huge influence. So while companies do that, it is also important that consumers are careful about the unethical practices that are there in the form of shilling and infiltration. Very often companies use their employees or higher officials to talk positive word of mouth, and they promote their products without actually revealing that they work for that company. They are employees of the company. So that is called shilling. And sometimes companies also use fake identities in discussion forums, and we call it infiltration. Now, these are very important trends that have emerged or are emerging, and these actually can help sales in a big way, but can also counter the effect of salespeople. So whenever companies, try to use the electronic medium or the media for word of mouth, they have to be very, very careful about each other, because this information about their products, about their brands, what they say about themselves and about the competitor, because whatever information is there online is something which is going to be archived and it's going to be there forever. So negative word of mouth is something which can be actually devastating for a company. We have a lot of instances where negative word of mouth has led to huge problem. A few years ago, you all may remember what happened to Maggie. Before that damage could happen, the CEO of the company was global was in India trying to go in for a damage control, and they withdrew all the packets of Maggie so that they could kind of say that, yeah, we are clean, we are fine, and then they would relaunch again. So it's very, very important that companies are very careful about word of mouth, because it is something which can actually lead to huge sales for a company. But if it is negative, it can also lead to damage reputation about a company, about a brand, in a very, very intense manner. So these are things which one has to take care of. With this, I finish, and I'm open to taking questions.
Thank you for enlightening us and giving us a deeper understanding about the sales trends. I'm sure all of the marketing enthusiasts had a worthy evening today. I now request the aspirants to shoot their questions about the session, post which we'll have a small session for you to know SME in a better way. Please raise your hands to ask questions. Yes, Adit.
Hello there. Good evening. So
Good
my
evening.
question is regarding how are companies nowadays following the hybrid model for the sales? Like they are setting up their physical stores for the customer to look and feel the products, as well as they are selling it online. Like basically they're focusing the sales part on the online, and only the offline stores are for the visits and for the touch and feel. So what are your views, that would this be the future of all the products, or would it be limited to the electronics and uh, heavy items only?
Yes, nice, interesting question, Udit. See, it all depends from, first and foremost, one has to understand that not everything can be sold online and not everything can be sold offline, right? And we also have to understand one more important thing, that, we still, in our country, I'm talking about India, we still have a huge population which is not tech savvy. Okay, either they are not tech savvy or they lack the resources required, and So if we go and if we see a country like India, we cannot live for just the online or the offline, right? We'll have to go in for a mix, and we'll have to be very, very, we'll have to be very careful while we are dealing with the various segments, isn't it? Yes, the past 2 years have led to a big change. Large number of people who were earlier not transacting online have been forced to transact online now. And it's very interesting to note with the penetration of the smartphone, even people in rural areas have started talking about Paytm and Google Pay and all those things. But you also have to understand that there is still a huge population which is not, is not doing that. They still rely on their local kirana wala. They still rely on their local sabzi wala. They still rely on their, nearby shop where they can buy shoes and clothes, right? So as of now, yes, we are already on the move, but we cannot surely say that when and what will be the right time, when we will all move towards that. Okay, it is something which cannot be said, and it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge, and to be able to operate both online and offline for companies and for a large number of stores which you see. Large number of stores also, retail chains also, they both online, offline. It involves a huge amount of expense, especially when it comes to managing the infrastructure and the real estate costs and things like that. But yet, we were all thinking like that, once the pandemic is over, people will flock to the malls, which was happening, which happened around Christmas, around New Year's. People just flocked to the malls because they were all sick and tired of sitting at home in these 2 years, and we thought it's over. But then you saw what happened, right? So we really don't know when we'll get to normal. Even after we get to normal, people would have probably, there'll be a segment which will be wanting to go out and shop. Another segment will be who will be now used to buying things and getting things at home. Yeah. So shopping, whether shopping is going to be defined with a convenience perspective, or it's going to be defined, as a fun, fantasy, hedonic perspective, is going to be there. Like, see, somebody would want to go and shop because he or she wants to shop, is forced to shop because there is no grocery at home, there are no clothes at home, or there's footwear needed, something like that. But there may be some people for whom shopping is a leisure, it's a fun activity. So companies will have to deal with these segments very, very differently. Yeah, there are a lot of issues which come in. The generation effect comes in, the age effect comes in, the socioeconomic class comes in. Yeah, so all those things you cannot say that online will stay or offline will stay or both will stay, and it's going to be very, very segment specific, and companies will have to keep that in mind all the time. But there is hope that we are going to get very tech savvy soon, and soon we will see this. But even if you see the highly developed countries in the world, people there also still flock to the stores. They still flock to the physical format, physical stores.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Parth, please go on with your question.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, my question is, Web 3.2 has been introduced. Like, we are having the Web 3.2 and Metaverse revolution right now. So how do you think the sales cycle and the marketing departments will get affected because of that? And how will the companies adapt to the implementation?
Companies will have to adapt. There is no way out. We cannot operate and live the way we were doing earlier. Yeah,
understood.
That is something we will have to adapt. And see, companies also educate the customers gradually. They simplify things for customers, isn't it? You see, recently Amazon decided to go vernacular in a big way. Why was that? Because language should not be a barrier for anybody, right? So that was acting as a barrier. People were thinking that, Amazon will not get, you'll not get, because there was a beautiful ad which was coming which showed that Amazon mein kya chakla belna bhi milta hai. Chakla belna is the one which you make roti. Yeah. So there's somebody who was trying to, they showed in that ad that you can get everything here. So people have people may be having a preconception that you won't get kitchen items there. Isn't it? So they showed, no, you also get this here. Yeah. So it's not only about making people aware and informed. It's also companies often try to ease the adoption of technology by people. And they will have to do that. As they move on, if they have to penetrate, they will have to do that.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering my question.
And that is wherein that is wherein the word of mouth has a big role to play. The opinion leaders have a big role. Yeah, how do you think people in a village started talking about Google Pay and Paytm? Somebody went there and told them. Who was this somebody? This somebody was a local person from the village. Because in rural areas, you will see, in all over the world, social contagion is very, very strong. People will do what others are saying, others are doing. The trust factor is huge. Isn't it? And that comes only from people within their social contagion. The in-group. Yeah?
True. Yes.
So once that happens, it's like a herd effect. I and you will do this, they'll not do. But if somebody within themselves tells them to do that, they'll do that. Isn't it?
Ma'am, actually, I was under the impression that internet has also not been adopted in the rural areas till
No,
now.
it has been.
Not in each and every area.
Exactly. You're right. That is what I started with. Did I not say that a large population of our country is not tech savvy and they don't have the resources? That is what I meant. Right? But
Yes.
it has started moving. I mean, yeah, if you go into absolute rural areas, that some rural areas in our country don't even have electricity, even now. Isn't it? So we cannot be, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like places in and around cities. Now people have, 10, 15, 20, 30 kilometers around cities. I'm talking about tier 2, tier 3 cities also. 30, 40 kilometers around, people have started becoming aware. Those rural village areas, people are now more aware. In fact, I would say that there is a very nice study, which, of course, when you join the MBA program, you will be sure in many subjects you'll hear that story about how innovations get diffused, and in that you'll see that the social system has a big role to play. Your social group, yeah, because anything which is new is something there's huge apprehensions of adoption. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Parth. Shraddha, you can go with your question.
Good evening, ma'am. My question is very much similar with what Path has asked. With the advent of meta concept by Facebook, now there are various metaverse related, metaverse based companies that are shifted to that culture. Like H&M has established its metaverse driven stores, and even Nike. So you even you feel that we are shifting towards the metaverse culture?
Cannot hear.
Wasn't she audible to you, ma'am? Ma'am, can you hear us? Yes, sir.
Text.
Sure, ma'am. Shraddha, do you mind typing in the question?
Okay.
Sure, I can.
Okay. While the question is being put on the chat, just tell me, am I audible? Sharon, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Okay. There are some internet connectivity issues here when students and aspirants, so some of us might not be able to hear the time checking. So the question which was asked, I didn't want to ask the question about metaverse. So let me also share with you straight from IIT Jodhpur in relation to metaverse. While you type the exact specific question, we are working with craftsmen, and you might be knowing Rajasthan in particular is very, very famous for its artisans. A huge variety of craft.
Yeah, I can hear now. I can hear. Yes, Dr. Sankal.
Yes, Prof. I'll just complete.
Okay, thank you.
So there is a huge variety of craft ranging from ethically acquired bone and horn to basic cloth then tie and dye, which you would have heard of or used, many of you, leather for shoes, gems and jewelry and all of that. Now, there is now how do you help these craftsmen reach out in a way that their interests don't get compromised? How do you do that? Now, IIT Jodhpur is thinking actively about it. Even as we speak, there's a team which is working on it. And the thing that we are moving towards is creating a metaverse which will allow immersive experience for tourists, for potential consumers, and experiential commerce. And that is very much possible through metaverse, as somebody was talking about. And it is through that we will provide a platform for even for craftsmen who will of course never be able to master it. They don't need to, but then somebody needs to provide them a platform, an ethical business model, and not a model which squeezes them out bit by bit, their margins. So while I'm sure further queries will type it out for Prof. Sahney, but I just wanted to point it out to you that even in the most unexpected of places, those things have been talked about. And given that IIT Jodhpur is an Indian Institute of Technology, these come very naturally to us to combine business interests with cutting-edge technology. That's what I just wanted to say.
And I thought I'll just add to what Dr. Sankalpa said. Let me introduce myself. My name is Venkatesh. I'm a faculty here at the School of Management and Entrepreneurship. Professor Sahney, if I can take a minute and then just to share with them one of the...
Sure.
Yeah.
Please.
VR and AR product that I have been mentoring. I think probably students will be pretty curious to know how almost everything is turning out to be metaverse in the recent times. How to the traditional way of learning for all of us has been through the book and the textbook and so on. Sit in the class and the teacher will explain to you, and then they had those transparent sheets put through as projectors and so on, and that also came in as a very surprising technology for us sometime in the late 90s and so on. And then came the projector. Projectors were not even available in the schools then. And today what we have is something called AR-enabled virtual learning system. So two of our students, final year BTech students, have developed education models. It's called ARED. ARED is the app that they have developed. You can probably try it out from your Google stores and Google App Stores and Play Stores, and then download it and play it around. Any science concept that you think of course, the product is and the development, it's in a beta version right now. Any scientific concept that you think of can be actually visualized, can be felt, and right in virtual reality, you can actually experience the whole thing. It comes alive on you. Say, for example, human bone structure. It just appears right in front of you, giving you a complete picture of turnaround, and you can actually turn it around the way you want it. You can flip it and so on. So all of those options are there. Now connecting to your H&M and other product lines, it's going to be the future reality. So today the real estate is going big way in the metaverse domain, metaverse line, metaverse path. They would want a buyer to experience the house even before visiting the house, sitting here, and the potential buyer or the viewer should be able to place things wherever he or she wants. If he or she wants to place a table at some spot and a chair at some spot and put a cupboard at some spot and a television at some spot, and virtually should be able to put those things and visualize how my house would look like. So, I mean, so is the case with Lenskart. Today, Lenskart probably has been a pioneer in going that metaverse way.
Yes.
Rest others are following in the Indian context. Yeah, so those are the thoughts. I think that's going to be one of the real domains. I think that is where the Tech MBA as a domain will have a greater implication than a traditional line of MBAs, because you will understand VAR, you will understand VR, and you will know how to really implement metaverse going forward to your product lines. I think that's where the game is on. Yeah, thanks, Professor Sahney, and thanks,
Yeah,
Uncle.
because to add on to that, I mean, it's very, very, it's something which is going to happen, and we all have to adopt it. There is no, every company has to do it, right? It's something which is not going to be a matter of choice. It's going to be something which has to be done. But yeah, with what kind of products, what kind of services, what kind of segment, that process may be different for different, genres. That may be there, but yeah, the concepts are here, and it's not going to be only AR, VR, and all these things. It's going to go beyond. Another 2 years, we'll see something bigger. Yeah. So it's something, as I said during my lectures, that world's most, if you have to be successful, you have to be most innovative, and world's most innovative companies are strongly into R&D, and R&D is something which has led to all these things. So if some product or a service is going to be born in that way, naturally this marketing and sales function also has to adapt to that. Yeah, and that will happen.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. We have a hard stop at 8, but then we have crossed the time. So I would like to conclude. I would encourage all of you to drop the questions to the email, and they will be answered for sure.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions on the chat also.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway, so
maybe Sharina, if Professor would like to answer those questions, you might give.
There are several of them actually.
Yeah.
I'll quickly take the first 2-3 of them, right? Because what came to me as the first 2-3, let me take that.
Sure, ma'am, sure.
So, can customer needs be modulated using word of mouth? See, needs can never be modulated. Wants can be. When you join the MBA program, I'll teach you the difference between a need and a want, and that is when you will realize. Okay, needs pre-exist a marketer. Okay, marketer cannot do anything to the need. All he can do is to trigger the want and sway it towards his product as a solution to that want. Okay. So yeah, through word of mouth, definitely companies do that. Don't you think? What is viral? What is buzz? That's what they do. They try to, sway you towards that, isn't it? Through word of mouth only. Yeah. So, and I told you about infiltration, and just now I told you about infiltration and shilling. Those are unethical ways in which they do that. But yes, they do that. Okay. How can a company manage a damage made by negative word of mouth? Before that happened, I gave you the instance of Maggie. Before that could happen, the person came running from, Nestle, sent their person here in India to damage control. So yeah, the best is to come up with an honest, press release. If you've done something wrong, best is acknowledge it. There is a very famous case on United Airlines. United Brakes Guitars. Just read that, it's online, and you'll understand what all happened. So and that is where, especially for service organizations, service sector, the service recovery is something which is very, very important. Because, if you're quick at a damage control, people will talk about how quickly you handled the problem rather than why the problem happened, and, it should not have been done. So if there is a problem, there is a problem. People will remember the problem if you do not take care of the remedy, if you don't give attention to the remedial action. If you get into the remedy mode, if you admit your failure, if you go in for a service recovery mechanism, people will forget the problem with the product or the service. They will remember your good approach in handling the problem. Okay. So if there is a mistake, if there is a problem, the best is to, so many of these automobile companies, right? Hyundai, Maruti, sometimes they come up with open things on their website and the press that so-and-so chassis number, so-and-so batch number, please bring your cars back. There is a problem with the car and we need to do something on that, or we need to change parts or something like that. Why do they do that? Because before the word spreads, they are being proactive that yes, we are recalling some cars with chassis number, this or engine number, so-and-so, so that, whatever could have been a probable problem in future can be averted. Okay, so if there is a problem, if there is a failure, it's best to acknowledge it and go in for a service recovery mechanism or so that the customer then is going to talk about the product and the service, not about the product and the problem. Okay. So I think I'll just take these two questions, and I don't know if there are any other questions.
Yeah, Sharanya, you might, Dr. Venkat, please. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, so Mayuk, yeah, there is a question. Okay, it's fine. Yeah.
I think they will answer it at the back end, and I'm sure no question will be left unanswered. Sharanya, please do take care.
Absolutely. All the questions will be answered.
Yes. If that any question requires any professor's inputs, please do reach out and do take those inputs, and then do make sure that all of their queries get answered. Yeah. Thanks.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah. There is two more questions. Should I take them? Two more are there only. I can see.
Ma'am, please go ahead.
Just
please.
Two of them are there. Yeah. So there is a question that on the chat that we see a lot of food apps and even financial apps sending nudges as mobile app notifications. For example, Zomato, Swiggy nudge notification to try pakoda or pizza when it's raining or there's a cricket match. Yeah, so they're typically done to actually they're triggering a want in you, right? It's actually a triggering of a want and an impulse purchase from your end. That's what they're doing it. So they often do that. In fact, they do it every day from 6 to 7, when September, October, as the cold season comes in. Around 7 o'clock, they start playing the ad for Knorr soups and Maggi soups. So that is basically to create, to kind of trigger those, hunger and those want needs and those hunger need, and also to, the taste buds have to get, suddenly active, because you can think of a delicious soup as a tomato soup or a hot chicken soup or whatever. So that is the reason that they do that. Similarly, 6 to 7, they do it on all Disney Channel, Pogo, Disney and all, for Kisan Jam or for, something like that, because that's the time children come back from play and they're hungry. So that is something which is definitely done purposely by the companies, so that so this is not something which is done today. It's been gone for a long time. They're doing it, but now they have, through their approaches towards integrated marketing communication, they can do that because they have different channels to target you with. It could be through ad on the television, or it could be a thing on the FM when you're returning from office, or it could be a mobile pop-up ad on the mobile, or a pop-up ad on your email and on the website, and so forth. And finally, that is, she's already done. Shraddha's question has already been answered by Dr. Sankalp and Dr. Murthy. Yeah, I think now done. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I once again thank Professor Sahney and all the faculty of SMA IT Jodhpur for being so enthusiastic and answering all the questions from the aspirants. We are looking forward for many such sessions, ma'am. I sincerely request the aspirants to reach out to the admissions committee for any further queries, or drop an email to us. We'll reach out to you immediately. Please join all the social media pages mentioned in the chat to get all the related updates. Thank you for joining. Have a nice day.